I'm going to go ahead and get started so you guys can just find your seats as I keep going. So my name is LeAnn Brosius, and I'm with the Office of Educational Innovation and Evaluation. And we are the external evaluators of the project. And so this presentation is just going to share a little bit of the highlights of the year 2 evaluation that we have conducted. And I hope to be brief and allow for questions at the end if you guys have them. I am going to also kind of give you a little bit of an update on who we are, if I can get this to move forward. Nothing is happening. Okay, there. I don't know what I clicked. One of them worked. Okay, so like I said, I'm LeAnn Brosius. Adam Kless is also on this project. He unfortunately couldn't come. He actually has moved to Rhode Island and is working remotely for our office, so he couldn't be here. But we are your team with the office. Didn't like that either. I'm not sure which button I'm pushing it. Okay, so just brief overview. Our office has been conducting program evaluation for 20 years. So we've been in existence for 20 years. We do program evaluation for a lot of different projects that are funded by a lot of different funding agencies. At any given point in time, we have around 55 to 60 projects that we're evaluating on our team. So we have a lot of experience. This is just highlighting some of the things that we've established over the last 20 years as an office in terms of evaluating programs and what we bring to evaluating this project. I'm not happy. There we go. So just to give you an overview of evaluation, who we are, what we do, why we do it. It's basically to provide you ongoing feedback of how your project is doing, how it's being implemented, what sort of progress are you making towards those objectives that you set up, those outcomes and impacts that are really important to the funding agency, USDA. We also then provide recommendations and then provide any sort of support that you have for reporting. So that's kind of what we do and why we do it for your office. And I was telling Chuck on the way here, you guys are such a great team. It's so fantastic to listen to your discussions because I'm like, well, I have some recommendations, but you guys are already doing it. You guys are already having those conversations. And so what you're going to be hearing me say at the end of my presentation, you're going to be like, well, we're already doing that. So kudos to you on that. Thank you. So here's the evaluation questions. I'm not going to read them. We just have 4 for this project. This is what we use to kind of guide the evaluation. And then what I really want to get into is what we did in year 2 in terms of the evaluation and what kind of data we collected. So we did a COVID-19 impact survey. I am going to briefly share that, even though you all did some great strategies and you overcome some of those barriers. So I'm going to share what came out of that survey. We also did a baseline social media analysis, which Chuck kind of highlighted. We did a sustainability survey. We did leadership team interviews. And then we did an annual team member survey that also included a social network analysis. So I'll kind of go over all of those. So here's kind of the results of the COVID impact survey. So basically, most people said overall their work was, affected moderately because of the barriers and restrictions due to COVID-19. You can see like that the field sampling and lab analysis had like the most impact in terms of getting behind schedule. And I think that was probably as a result of trying to get people that restricted to travel or the barriers in sampling. Sorry, let me move this. That's kind of in the way, isn't it? So that just having limited personnel, not getting students hired, those kind of things had that impact on that field sampling. Also, delays in the REU program was hit pretty hard as well. So that was another big barrier and things that were affected. But here we are like a year later, because we collected this at the very beginning of year 2, and you guys had done some strategies and you've overcome some of these things. And so really, this is just a look back to see like what we did and what we overcame. And you guys have done a great job of overcoming some of those challenges related to COVID-19. So we also did a baseline social media analysis, and we like to do this to just kind of get an idea of how you're disseminating your work through social media. And so we can see with this, and this is just one way of disseminating work, right, to a different type of audience. So you can see that we have these different areas that are related to content views in terms of the different platforms that you're utilizing. And what that's doing is it's increasing the awareness of the project for those different target audiences. So every time that people are viewing that, their awareness is getting increased, which is one of your goals. Then we have what Chuck was kind of talking about yesterday, is just that sharing and the following and the commenting on the things that you guys are posting in Facebook and in Twitter. And this kind of gets at a higher level of impact. And in terms of your project goals, this is where we're seeing that advancing of understanding of the project and the project related content. And so we'll be following up with more social media to see how it's growing. And we actually supplemented this with a social media strategy for the project to say, we want to see this type of growth in these types of metrics and areas. And with that growth, then we can say some more substantial impact types of things. So we're trying to establish some actual social media growth goals for your project. We also did a sustainability assessment survey. Now, this is something that we have done with other projects in terms of at the end, like how sustainable are you going to be? And one of the things we realized is we really need to do this at the beginning so we can see where projects feel they are at the beginning and then do it at the end to see if they, because if you do it at the end, you can't make any mid-course adjustments. So we actually went ahead and did this in year 2. And you can see that for the most part, the project feels like they're doing pretty well in terms of sustainability. All of the sustainability domains are above a 5, but there are some that are lower. So in terms of funding, stability, communication, strategic planning, and partnerships, those are things that were a little bit lower. So obviously you might want to focus some efforts on that or discussions on that. But at the same time, you don't want to forget about the other ones that are high, right? And then have the flip happen. So this is just something to kind of look at your program overall in terms of how well set up are we to be sustainable by the end of the project. And then we also looked at the sustainability factors related to your actual project goals. And I'm only going to point out one thing in terms of that. You can see across the board that communication is important for all of those. In terms of the other individual ones, it really just depends on the project goal. What was most important? Was it partnerships? Was it, program evaluation, maybe a strategic planning? So there was a lot of variation in terms of the other ones, but communication is a big one across all of them. So then we conducted some leadership team interviews and we asked about progress, integration, impacts, and sustainability. And the leadership really feels like the team has done a great job in terms of the field work and experiments, modeling outputs, in terms of making progress in those types of things. And Chuck even mentioned all the publications that you guys have already put out, which is great. And then in terms of integrating, the one that came to the top was that the modeling is working with the field data sets already. And so that's a great component of getting the two teams integrated. I've heard a lot of conversations these last couple of days that are already starting to show more integration across teams with a lot of these different things. So I can see that being something that we see a lot more of in terms of integrating across the teams. In terms of impacts, there's developing those decision-making tools, gaining new knowledge for the team, as well as students getting experience and building those collaborative networks, as well as then implementing these different technologies and methods are all the impacts that the leadership team is already kind of seeing starting. And then in terms of sustainability, what they think is important are definitely the new partnerships. Like these are important in terms of getting the project to be sustainable because they're the ones that have access to the resources and the equipment. Those are the connections that need to be made. And then also just disseminating the products out and then sharing through social media were all things that came up in terms of important factors related to sustainability. So now I want to share a little bit about the team member survey that we did. All of this stuff is kind of preliminary data. We haven't finalized this yet, so it hasn't been into a report, but I scrambled it together so you guys could kind of see some of the highlights. So in terms of progress, the team thinks that you guys are on schedule despite some of the barriers that have happened and setbacks. In terms of implementation, not everybody, but most people are generally satisfied with that, or somewhat satisfied. So I can say everybody that took the survey is in the satisfied category. And then in terms of completing primary objectives, the majority of people are very confident. So overall, it's a very positive outlook in terms of where this project is at and where it's going. We have focused this survey on partnerships. We want to get an idea of where people feel like they are in terms of partnerships. So in terms of impacts from the partnerships that are happening right now, the team is engaging partners and sharing progress that's being made. They feel like the partnerships are advancing and enhancing the project's research. And they also feel like the partnerships are giving those opportunities for students as well. And then in terms of project success, collaboration and communication among team members was probably the biggest thing that people said in terms of the biggest success. And that's probably because there were so many challenges and barriers related to communication, and just being able to overcome them or find ways to make it happen. That's one of the successes that has come out in year 2. And then we also asked the team about sustainability and what kind of key efforts need to happen. And it's those collaboration and partnerships with the research and industry that's important. Project research and results, making sure that those get out, as well as looking at future grant funded projects as well. So here's just a look at the partnership network that we have. Obviously it's preliminary, but what is this telling us? Well, it's telling us that the RAIN project is developing new partnerships. So we can see that 65% of the partnerships from this project are new. They were formed because of this project. It's also fostering that interinstitutional collaboration. So we've got 26% of the collaborations on this project are going across institutions, which is positive. And then it's engaging those external partners. So there's actually 10 external partners right now that are currently being engaged, and they represent about 20% of the connections. And we imagine and foresee that this will grow, right? We do these, and then we look at them from year to year, and we can see that these types of partnerships and collaborations change and grow over time. So what are our observations with all these different data collections? Well, so the BRAIN project, you are advancing knowledge and you are improving understanding, and you're doing that through the publications, you're doing that through social media, and you're doing it through other dissemination methods. So you are doing that. You're also adapting strategies so that your project can continue to move forward. You're integrating research to ensure this ongoing effectiveness and sustainability of the project. You're also increasing benefits across the Southern Great Plains through your integrated research, through extension, and through your education efforts. And then you're building a collaborative network. And it not only includes researchers, but it also includes students, it includes partners, and it includes producers, which is very important. So what are our recommendations? So continue disseminating the project research, and of course, do that through publications, do that through social media. Those were things that came up, but there are other ways that you can disseminate efforts out to the different audiences. So it's important to think, what does that look like? How do we get this out to producers? What's going to be the most useful format? Is it small group interviews or conversations? So how does that look? What this is going to do, it's going to build the understanding of those best management practices that you're wanting to communicate. It's going to communicate the value of your project. Like, why is this important? Why are we doing this anyway? So it's going to communicate that out to them. And then, of course, it will ensure sustainability of the project. So also encourage collaboration, data sharing, and integration across teams, which we are hearing these last couple of days. You guys are doing a great job of that, but also bring in your external stakeholder groups. And I know that's part of the plan. And so bringing those in and encouraging that collaboration with them as well. This will help overcome any remaining barriers from COVID, or maybe some new ones will happen. We have no idea with that. So it will hopefully help with that. It will increase the awareness of the project even more, and it will enrich the project research and extension work that is upcoming. And then expand the engagement and conversation with your advisory board, with your partners, and with, of course, your external stakeholder groups. So this will help reinforce and strengthen the connections that you already have, as well as kind of build those. It will enhance your network, and it will foster kind of that movement towards adoption, right, which is what you want. So as you're engaging those people, that adoption will happen. And then, of course, it will help establish and leverage any sort of different funding sources that you may need to look at other projects or other areas. So that's all that we have. Does anybody have any questions?